Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens, is an excellent resource to get your children started on understanding the basics of financial literacy. This book, which is set in Brownville, Brooklyn, about a young man who gets his first job and then shortly thereafter sits down with his dad to learn how to manage his money. There are several topics that are covered within this work, such as paying yourself first, disciplining your spending, knowing the difference between an asset and a liability, creating multiple sources of income, as well as the importance of being charitable. So again, if you want to get your children started on understanding finance and becoming responsible adults, we highly recommend that you purchase the book, Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens. So please visit maliksfirstjob.com to get more information. Peace.
A young man who was not doing so well in math.
Right.
And he's like, Coach Chatmon, I got it up to 72. And I went off. And the teacher's looking at me like, wait, this kid had a 54 and now he has a 72. I said, young fella, can't tell me Black Lives Matter and you fell in math. She was like, what? I said, listen, ma'am, I'm going to put that same student on the basketball court tomorrow and I'm going to want 110%. And that student's going to give me 110%. Are you telling me all he's good for is to give me 110% on the basketball court, but he can't give me 85 or 90 in the math class? So I didn't even ask for 110 in the math class. I asked for, and she looked and her eyes was like, oh my gosh, I've been selling him short. I said, yes, ma'am. I said, because he understands if he don't give me an 85 or above, when that college coach comes in and looks at his grades, he's going to say next. I said, and he also didn't understand that the transfer portal does not care about him. It's going to say, I already have a athlete that has the grades. I'll just get him and I'll skip over the young man in high school. Is he deserving of playing basketball? Yes. But if I'm going to have him on the court asking for 110, I'm asking you to demand 85% in your classroom.
Malik's First Job Podcast, here to answer any questions that y'all ask. Financial literacy and resources. Parents and young people becoming bosses. CEOs, future leaders, entrepreneurs. Conferences and boardrooms getting sponsors secured. If you want generational wealth, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip with information to help. Malik's First Job Podcast. Malik's Podcast. Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip. Kerwin Phillip. Malik's First Job Podcast. Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip. Generational wealth.
Greetings. How you doing? This is Kerwin Phillip here with another episode of the Malik's First Job Podcast. We talk about leadership, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy for parents and teens. You know, in this day and time, we speak about the educational system, and oftentimes people speak about the problems and issues that take place within the educational system. And one of the topics that come up is the fact that how young African-American males are struggling in the school system. And so today we're going to have a conversation with some young gentlemen about, you know, the issues taking place in the school system as far as surrounding African-American males, and also the solutions they have in place to help resolve this problem. So right now I want to introduce you all to the organization known as the Triple C Effect, right? And this organization is comprised of three brothers. We have, you know, Robert Chatmon, Henry Caudle, and Dr. Aaron Carter. We want to welcome them to the Malik's First Job Podcast, and let's talk about the Triple C Effect. Man, how y'all brothers doing today?
We're good.
Doing well.
Thank you for having us on the podcast. Thank you.
No doubt. So please, anyone, just please tell me tell me and the audience, what exactly is a Triple C Effect?
I'll give it a whirl. Good afternoon and good evening, depending on, I guess, where you are in the country. I'm Dr. Aaron Carter, Jr., and I send greetings from Denver, Colorado. Just to talk a little bit about the Triple C effect, we are three like-minded Black men who want to make a difference in education with regards to changing the trajectory for academic achievement and graduation rates for African American males in high school. And we basically started years ago, actually working in the same building at an urban high school, and realized that we had what I consider magic with regard to supporting African American males. We saw that they were struggling with academics, they were struggling with behavior, as in some of the highest behavior incidents with ISS and OSS. African American males were not being placed in our top academic courses such as AP, dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment. The rigor was low, expectations were set low, but we, the three of us, knew that we had pockets of greatness with again with regards to supporting these gentlemen, and so we actually ended up leaving this particular school. But what we realized is that we wanted to be a force multiplier, and we wanted to build capacity with helping schools, school districts, teachers, administrators, district office workers better support African American males. And so we started the Triple C effect. So it's been about a year. We were just talking about that earlier today, where we started this LLC in order to make a difference in supporting Black males. And so we all bring different skill sets to the table. I actually completed a dissertation on the lived experiences of African American males in public schools, and that's around research and theory, and then interviewing postgraduates of the same high school that we worked at. And I was able to formulate some summaries, some trends, and some conclusions to take to school leaders regarding changing the trajectory for African American males. So that was what I brought to the table. I'm going to now pass the mic to Mr. Caudle, and he can talk to you guys a little bit more about the Triple C effect as well.
Okay.
Well, yes, Mr. Curran, thank you again for the opportunity. I do want to say that I'm wearing my hot pink for breast cancer awareness, and I say also any cancer. My mother just recently a cancer survivor, a cancer warrior. So I want to send positive vibes to all those families, all of those going through that, because that definitely changed my life. And so I want to send positive vibes to those folks around the world and around the country. So getting to my piece of the Triple C effect, the first thing is named the Triple C effect because all of our last names start with the letter C. And it's also affect. It's not with the E, but it's with the A. Meaning, what we bring to the table, how we make a change, how we make people feel. And so, in terms of having that effect, we had that effect with our Black males. But I learned when being in administration that if I was not at the school, then things changed. And so I learned on that I should have been giving my strategies to all of my teachers so that the Black males had outlets to go through, just not me. Like one thing I always say about the Triple C effect is that when schools have to come to a professional development, we are not the silver bullet. We're not giving you things to demand that you do, because if those were not to go right, then we'd be frauds. But what we are saying is that we're providing you strategies to all teachers and stakeholders to enhance that relationship with African American males. Now, you might be wondering, well, why African American males? Because we are them. Meaning we are coming at you from a different angle saying, I can tell you what I told my Black boys behind closed doors. You might not relate, you might not understand, but their mindset was changed. So now all we're doing is we're really giving the cheat codes, like I said, to all stakeholders so that they can almost have those same relationships with our Black boys, so that therefore they have different outlets to go through for support, for care, and also understanding. And so I bring the aspect of being in administration, but also changing culture, building wide, also system wide. And so along with Dr. Carter with his data analysis, also with me bringing my culture building, I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic to our final and intricate piece, Mr. Robert Chatmon.
And I echo these guys, man, when I say thank you so much for having us on. It really means a lot to us. So the part that I play in the Triple C effect is I'm in the classroom. So these guys were my administrator coming up. And so they would give me the strategies, they would give me the data, and then I would have to demonstrate it. And so a lot of people say, well, yeah, you can do that. You're a black man. Well, that's not how it always was. I came in green like every other teacher. I was unable to communicate to some people in my classroom just like any other teacher. I was okay with my AP class looking like it was because it was my quiet class, or they did whatever I needed them to do until these gentlemen stepped in and said, no, we got some African American young men who need to be in AP. Well, I said, well, they're not signing up for it. How do we do that? He said, you need to go to the middle school. You need to write letters of recommendation for these young men. You need to communicate with their parents, and you need to be the change that you seek. And so I had to use the strategies and the data that these gentlemen gave me, and I was able to implement it in my classroom and to change the trajectory of some young men. And so, like Dr. Carter said, we've since moved from that school, but I still use those same strategies. And so, where teachers even ask me now, it's not just African American young men or African or Latin young men. It's now some of our Caucasian. These teachers are coming in and saying, "Hey, well, how are you getting him to do the work?" I said, "Well, did you know he enjoyed boxing, or did you know he enjoyed this, this, and this?" They're like, "No." I said, "Relationship." I was not able to get there until I was able to communicate with these two men, and I'm not going to say they forced me, but they strongly recommended that I start building relationships before I started building education. And it has helped, man. And so like Carter said, the data is there. And then like Caudle said, um, we're able to pass these strategies on to teachers so that their classrooms can be better.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. So, what do you feel? What do you all feel is like the root cause of like a lot of these issues that we're having? Like the apathy. Behavior issues. Just all around, what's going on with our kids? What's the root cause of that?
That's a great question, Kerwin. I appreciate you tossing that to me because I get real passionate. I'm gonna do my best to not yell. I'm just gonna stay calm and talk about it because it is a passion point of mine. But I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and give you a long history lesson, but we understand the history of racial and social stratification in our country. We understand the legacy, if you will, of the emasculation, the taking away of the father figure in the black family, going all the way back to slavery times. We also understand this theory. A lot of times we understand it, but we don't name it. But there's this theory called social constructivism. And basically, Curran, what that means is that everybody in society, I don't care who you are, whether it's me, you, somebody's Latinx, somebody's white, and somebody's Asian, male, female, we all have definitions of the person next to us, or people that we interact with in society based on what somebody has told us. It cannot be biologically proven. It cannot be, written up based on research. And so what I'm trying to get across here is that historically, our society and particularly schools have these defined beliefs about what black males can and cannot do. And so schools now construct themselves and they build curriculums and they build systems and they build protocols and procedures around these false understandings of what African American males can do. And then it becomes, unfortunately, a self-fulfilling prophecy for black males. And so when they walk into school settings, there's already this belief that I don't fit in, or they don't have anything for me, or as soon as I open my mouth, they're going to define me, or they're going to vilify me, or what have you. And so that belief has been perpetuated for generations and generations. And so now that begins to define kind of the root cause as to what we're dealing with. Beyond that, you also have the people who are in charge in schools. So district office personnel, and not everybody, but a lot. District office personnel, administrators, policy makers, curriculum makers, they have these socially constructed beliefs about how they should educate black males when they don't truly understand. It's based on what they think they know as opposed to what the real deal is. And so you have this crashing, if you will, every day of stakeholders and African American males, they crash every single day. When in reality, what you have to do is get to the core and the heart of understanding who we are as Black men, who they are as young Black men, and then finding ways to respond appropriately. We call that cultural responsiveness. Being able to respond appropriately and culturally to the needs of African American males, but it starts with mindset. And that whole explanation I just gave you really is around mindset. And so we have to transform the mindset of the stakeholders who are in front of our Black males every day. And that's the work that we're doing with the Triple C effect.
Okay. So I know, like, I think mindset is the key to everything that we do, right? A lot of times when I speak about the financial literacy aspect or leadership, it's always a shift in the mindset. So I guess with these, let's say from the standpoint of like the student, because again, the student comes in having a certain mindset that has to be shifted, as well as the teachers and the administrators, they come in with a mindset that has to be shifted as well. So what is the approach, I guess, from both aspects? What approach is taken to help shift that mindset?
Yeah. So Curran, great question. When shifting mindset, in changing culture, like you know how they say Rome was not built overnight. I say,
Right.
but mindset can shift overnight. Meaning your individual mindset can most certainly shift from, what I'm saying, Friday night to Saturday morning because an experience happened. Meaning, like, let me just give you a quick example. We were interviewing a young male. He had done something. I was with three other personnel who were Caucasian. This young male started telling a story, and he was just cursing up a storm, and they didn't say anything about it. And I had to
Mm.
stop the story and say, "Hey, man, clean it up. You can talk without cursing." But the point of the matter is the fact that no one else told him that was almost, I said, wow, they
Mm.
almost expected the story to be told like that, incoherent, using curse words, and he was not presenting his best light. But when he got adjusted, it sounded competent and it sounded intelligent. So, Curran, like what I'm talking about is the mindset. If the mindset for stakeholders that's how they talk and that's the best that they can do, then we're always going to be behind. That's why when changing the mindset and changing the culture, it's one of those things I say, real life comes first. Academics follow. You can teach exponentially once you get the mindset on the same level. So when talking about relationships, when you build relationships with those students, that like the student who you think about on Sunday night, and you hope they're sick because they just tear your class up. Educators, I know you can feel me. I know you can. And so the student who turns your classroom upside down, my question to you is this: what if you had a relationship with that student, and instead of an enemy, they became an ally? How would that change your classroom? How would that change your feeling about them? And how many more years of education would that put on your educational career? Because many folks around the country, Kerwin, have retired because of one or two kids.
Mm-hmm.
Many folks have retired because of one class. So you mean to tell me 30 kids dictated your passion and your life? It was all because of lack of a relationship. And so when we talk about the root cause analysis, we talk about mindset and we talk about relationship building, but it's one of those that you have to put real life first and then academics second.
Wow. 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 So let's say, I guess with your program, you have the children, you take your approach, you help them. But then, like when I used to teach, I realized, because I remember I told you all the story, that when I got into education, I came in thinking it was going to go a certain way, right? I said, I thought, get in the front of the classroom. I'm a teacher. I'll provide instruction. The kids listen. You know, I do the assignments. They take the test. Everybody's, in line and everything, falls, in line ABC the way it's supposed to be. But then I was quickly introduced to the fact that education today is not that way, right? Because the children bring in so much baggage and things going on outside of the school itself, and it's brought into the classroom. And as a teacher, you wear so many different hats, right? Not just the educator, you're the guidance counselor, you're the step parent, the authoritarian, all these different things, all these different things. So from what you all are doing, like again, trying to help the young people, but yet they still have those outside influences, right? That, again, that they have to deal with once they leave you all. How do we approach that challenge, right? Knowing that once they leave within your circle, they still got to go back outside and then, deal with what's going on in their reality.
Well, so I kind of have to flip this. How did you know what they were dealing with?
Because teaching, in like in the inner city school, like for example, I know that the school I was teaching at, the kids lived in like certain neighborhoods, and there was violence, drugs, all this other stuff, and
Right.
there were times where, let's say, a friend of theirs was recently killed,
Right.
right, and they're dealing with that trauma,
Right.
right. You have kids that came to school hungry. They didn't have any food at home to eat, right? And you hear all the whisperings and stuff in the classroom. You pick up on what's going on,
Right.
right? So how do we, I guess, do our best to help them once they leave outside our circle?
So the reason I asked you that was because that was the question that these gentlemen asked me.
Mm,
How do you know what they're dealing with? Well, I don't. Exactly. You better. You have to. It's mandatory. The first two
mm-hmm,
weeks, not necessarily the first 2 weeks because things have started to speed up, but at least the first couple of days, it needs to be all about them. What are they going through?
mm-hmm,
Because the truth be told, they don't care about economics if they don't see that you care. And
right,
so once you get in, once you know where they live, once you understand what happened last night, once they come to you and say, man, my mom made me babysit the kids all night long and I ain't get no sleep.
mm-hmm,
Well, if you didn't get any sleep, you're not gonna turn in any homework. And so I'm saying, hey, look, man, don't worry about that. I got you. You go over there, lay your head down. We'll talk about economics later.
right,
And now you're saying, um, I'm speaking to the person, not the student.
mm,
And that student now has an outlet in you as a teacher. And eventually you will get the economics done. I promise we got plenty of time to do that. But if I can know where they're coming from and I can understand their situations and I can have empathy and some type of understanding, I slowly win that kid over to where I can have a real conversation with that kid. And the conversation goes like this: do you enjoy not sleeping at night? Heck no, Mr. Chapman. How are you going to change it? I can't change it, but you can. Well, how do I change it? You can learn economics because economics is about scarcity, which means you have to make a decision. Everything else you give up is a trade off. Seeking the goal that you want to be, which is a what? And then they tell you their goal. And then to me as a teacher, if I don't teach them anything else, I have to teach them relationships. I have to teach them connectivity. Because if you say, hey, well, I want to be a construction worker. Well, we live in Athens, Georgia, right there next to UGA, which construction is going on every time we win a football game.
mm-hmm,
If I don't instantly pull over on the side of the road and say, hey, man, who is the foreman on this job? I need to introduce you to a young man.
mm-hmm,
Then I truly don't care about that kid. I'm just trying to make it through the day. And so we were, and I don't even want to say forced, but we were strongly encouraged to find out what these kids want to be because no kid wakes up saying, "Man, I just want to be a thug. I want to die. I want to babysit my." No kid, no, they have
right,
dreams. And so our job is to encourage those dreams, not destroy them. And that goes to what Carter and Caudle was saying. When you have these teachers who already have these mindsets like, oh, they can't own a construction company, or they can't be mathematicians, or they can't be, when if you really know our history, we were those things.
right,
We were the mathematician. We were the irrigational specialist. We were the first person to direct the 3 ships that came over here. We were the people. We were the point. And then
right,
when you think about the Native Americans who then went down towards the south, they became the Latins who did the exact same thing.
mm,
So but it goes back to I have to establish a relationship and understand where these kids are coming from before I can properly introduce them to something else. So yes, I have to have. I understand that they're shooting at night. I understand that we're going through this, but do you want to be the person looking up at the church? What do you mean? Do you want to be the person in the box? No, this is how we change it.
Wow. Wow. And how do we get, I guess, people, of course, we get it, right? Because we come from the culture, we understand that. But what about teachers who don't grow up in this environment, right? I know, like myself, I grew up in the inner city, Brooklyn, New York. And I know, like I said, I may not be grew up in Richmond, Virginia, but I'm familiar with the environment and what takes place in that environment. And I think we all are familiar somewhat with what takes place in the inner city. But we have other teachers, other educators who didn't grow up in those surroundings, right? How do we get them to understand and try to make that connection as well?
I'm glad you asked that question as well. And I spoke a little bit about this earlier, but we understand that educators, number one, they don't even all come from the same school of education. So whereas the University of Colorado or or Denver University or the University of Georgia or whatever, they all have different schools of education, and they all have what they consider as priorities with regard to what they're teaching their teacher candidates. And so they, number one, they come out with varying mindsets and dispositions and pedagogies about how they teach kids. Number two, you have to be mindful of the fact that most teachers are going to teach the way that they were taught. And, everybody's a college graduate, everybody's successful. They're probably still accustomed to that same model of sit and get, the teacher's in front of the classroom, kids are supposed to sit there and comply, take notes, study, you know, take the exam, and all goes well. Well, that's the first myth that you have to debunk. And so what we do as a triple C effect is we sit down with teachers and we talk to them about mindset. We talk to them about equity. We talk to them about understanding what social constructions are. But we also ask them to have a level of trust and vulnerability. And in some ways, Kerwin, that level of trust and vulnerability is already there because they've asked for and they've solicited our help. As Henry was talking about earlier, you got a kid that you wish that doesn't come to school tomorrow, or you got a kid that's quote unquote tearing the club up, and you truly don't know what else to do. And so you really open up your mind to trying to find different ways to relate to this kid, to get this kid to understand that you care about them and that you want them to learn. And so one of the first things that we do with the Triple C effect is we offer what's called a needs assessment. And so within that needs assessment, we're asking them a series of questions about their mindsets about kids, what they're experiencing in the classroom, what areas are Black males struggling in their school, whether it's academics, whether it's student achievement on tests, high stakes tests, whether it's behavior, whatever the case may be. And so from that needs assessment, we create what's called a profile. And that profile begins to objectify where these people are standing. And so there's really no question around, well, this is subjective or this is their opinion, this is whatever. No, this is hard data. This is research. Like, you presented this information to us, and this is the profile that fits you. And so in so many ways, you don't have a choice but to face this because you're looking at yourself in the mirror. And so that becomes the first step in beginning to transform, changing what happens in their schools, in their classrooms, in their school districts. And so those first steps are really just around getting these schools districts, these stakeholders, to understand where they are objectively. And then once you can get them into that space where they understand that objectively, then you talk to them about the trust and the vulnerability. And then you allow us as a Triple C effect to come in and work with you. And then what we'll do is we'll coach you over time, and you'll see like bite-sized pieces of change over time, and then you'll eventually get to where you need to get. And so that really kind of sums up where we are with regards to those first steps in transforming the beliefs about Black males from our stakeholders.
Wow. Peace, peace, peace. What's going on? This is Kerwin Phillip. from the Malik's First Job podcast. Just a quick reminder, hit that subscribe button below and that notification bell. That way you never miss an episode when it drops. All right? Thank you all for supporting, and let's jump back into the conversation. Peace. So are you all currently in schools now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know that we have actually like three distinct positions. I'm currently at a district level, math coordinator at a virtual school. I know Dr. Caudle is a principal currently at an alternative school in Denver, Colorado. And Mr. Chatmon is currently an econ teacher at Bob Jones High School in Madison, Alabama. So we're currently in the field. So it's one of those things too, sir, that we wanted to make sure that we're not coming to you teaching in the 70s, telling
Right.
like I'm saying, like, hey, every time I talk to my mom, she tells me stories. I said, Mom, that was back in the day when education was a priority, And so, like, what we're saying is that we're giving you real life, up to date strategies that we have seen and that we have used, and we're also giving you strategies that can help because currently the one thing that's changing is the child. The one thing that's not changing is usually our traditional methods about education. You can look at that from a landscape from different avenues. Like I said, like we're not going to talk about politics. We're not going to talk about race and all that stuff. But one thing I will tell you is that if you listen to all of the educational talk, it's traditional, sir. Like we haven't moved from that. But our kids are so technology advanced. Our kids are so emotionally vulnerable. Our kids are so fearless that we have to harness that in a different way. And the only way to harness that, sir, is to have a relationship with them. And so that's why we say, honestly, the best way to have a relationship with a student is to get to their level first. I know we have scope and sequences. I know we have curriculum maps. I know we have pacing guides, but that means nothing. That means nothing if you don't connect with your students and you still get those scores. At least you want kids to try. If they try, that means they respect you. If they respect you, they'll listen to you. If they listen to you, you could innate change. And so that's why we're just trying to say, by all means, it's relationship first, academics second. It's real life first, academics second, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess let me rephrase the question. So do you all have any clients that you're working with now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We
Okay.
have we've actually started in my home school, and then we're working our way back in Athens, Georgia, and now looking to get. So all of us are from different places: Colorado, um, Gwinnett, and then myself in Huntsville. So we've been working the Huntsville area, and now we're trying to get to Colorado. And matter of fact, we all will be getting together this week in Gwinnett.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
And just
So
to add,
what has been the what you about to say?
Karen, I was just going to say, just to add to that, I'm also piloting a great deal of our work here in the school where I currently am. I'm in what's called a pathway school, and so we take expulsion kids, all black and brown kids, and then in addition to that, we have kids that are here by choice. And so a lot of the strategies that we're talking about here with the Triple C effect, and a lot of our action steps are being implemented kind of in a pilot way here in the school where I work as well. So we have feelers out there all over the place, and we're really excited about some of the results that we're seeing.
Okay. So real quick, you said some of the kids, like you have expulsion kids. Now you said there's some that go there by choice.
Yes, sir.
So I guess so. Why would they choose to go there as opposed to someplace else?
That's a great question. So in the grand scheme of things, we have 90,000 kids in the district where I work, and we have over 200 schools. And in the 6 to 12 setting, there's some really large schools. I mean, I think our largest middle school in this district has about 1,600 kids, and our largest high school has about 3,000 kids. And so certain kids, they just don't fit in that comprehensive or that traditional setting. And so they're looking for something that's a lot smaller. In fact, my school only has about 50 kids, so it's not very large. And so what we do is, again, it's a two-pronged approach. We have expulsion kids. So a kid does something really stupid, like they might bring a weapon to school, or they may get caught up in some beef, and they end up getting into like multiple fights, or Generally those are the two things that really will get them into an expulsion setting. But what we find out is that once those kids get here, they're really good kids. They just get caught up, like things happen. And so those end up actually being some of our best students are the ones who are expelled. It's kind of like when you're in the prison system, they say some of your most model citizens in the prison are your murderers. The research shows that it's very, very interesting how that works. But then on the other side of the coin, we do have kids who we have an enrollment team, and there's an enrollment form online where if a kid is struggling in a traditional setting and they by choice want to try something different, then they go through the enrollment process here. And our enrollment team meets once a week. We look at their profiles, we ask ourselves a series of questions, we use a protocol, and then we choose to either admit those students or not admit those kids. But we have to be very, very careful about who we're bringing into the school environment as we are, in a really a turnaround mode right now. So a lot of the work that we're talking about that we're doing with the Triple C effect around relationships, around social emotional supports, around academic supports, around empowering Black and Brown kids to be successful, in particular African American males. That's the type of work that we're doing here at the school where I work.
Okay, okay. Now I got another question to ask you all. I know you all are like in three different areas. So, like here in the Richmond area, like we've seen an increase in conflict and like fighting at the high school and I guess at the middle school level as well. Whereas it became so serious that they had to cancel like football games. You had kids fighting at football games, and I remember seeing that myself personally last year. So some guys like I would think that you see a bunch of adults around, you're not going to jump a kid at the football game because there's other adults there, but these kids just jumped on this kid and just beat him up and all kind of stuff. So, are you all seeing an increase in like conflict where you all are at as well?
Well, yes, I say, Kern. I think that's a trend, an unfortunate trend,
Mhm.
sir. I think we could all Google school fight and have multiple videos in multiple states and multiple, different settings, globally. And so it's one of those things too that when parameters are not established through relationships. Okay, so
Mhm.
when I was over the freshman academy, I always had my hat on that it was going to be some beef. I had to maneuver that way. So when I
Mhm.
maneuver that way, always had to give, positive encouragement about how to act, I'm saying, what not to do. But then also too, how they might be stereotyped. So meaning that, at sporting events, like one of the first things that I would do was talk about, academics and honor roll first before tip off, because like
Mhm.
that's almost like this is important as the game. Many parents come to the game, but you can't get them to a conference, right? So I had to take advantage of that opportunity, but also too because it meant, that I could come at the parents from a different angle. And for once,
Mhm.
if they're there for the game, at least they're there, so I can talk to you for a minute. But when I say positive encouragement and setting those parameters, also being real life, meaning that if
Mhm.
I see a group of 4 or 5 boys, I'm 6'3", 230. I'm still getting
Mhm.
nervous. So I know if anyone else is not my demographics or my complexion, they're definitely going to get really, really, really nervous. Okay, but that's
Mhm.
almost like the nature of the beast, sir. But what I'm telling you is this: like seeing those trends, that's why it's imperative to talk to these kids with conflict resolution, to talk to these
Mhm.
students, I'm saying, like with the social emotional, to have different outlets, I'm saying, instead of fighting, because fighting is the lowest hanging fruit. Everyone's gonna fight. Everyone's gonna
Mhm.
fight. But these same kids who fight, they still have a job at Wendy's. They still work at Burger King. Like they still work at McDonald's, but they're not fighting on their job. So they can restrain themselves in certain environments. So I try to look at
Mhm.
all those environments by getting to know them and let them know that there's a time and place for everything. But in terms of educational institutes, in terms of being in public places, because like you're just creating indirect havoc that you do not see. So I always try to bring like the whole picture back by you jumping that student at the Friday night football game. Your 4-year-old sister could have been trampled. Your grandma
Mhm.
had asthma attack. Your mom could have been hit and knocked down. Then what? Like you don't think about the repercussions of events like that. That's why we try to make sure when giving the stakeholders strategies, we try to say, hey, you have to be real, but you have to get what I'm saying, into the student's mindset, saying, hey, 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 this is not the place nor the time. Let's talk about
Mhm.
other ways, but also too, like let's talk about how society is going to view you. they're not going to view you as an academic student here at the school. They're going to view you as a thug. They are.
Right.
So I mean, so it's also one of those things that we have to be real. But these are the suggestions and tips that we do during our professional development. These are also the things that we tell teachers. Like I say, Kerwin, sometimes it's too hot for TV, and that's where we come in respectfully and professionally and tell you, because the same things that you're thinking about, I will most certainly tell you. Oh yeah, like they don't trust you because you're not black. Oh yeah, like they might not trust you because like you have a whole different setting. But let me help you bridge that gap. Let me help you mend that fence. And so those are the things, sir, that gets everyone's attention. So unfortunately, we see the trend in violence, but I would still offer the fact of having more relationships at that game might have had more students turn away. You know what I'm saying? Like they saw people of help. Maybe. We're just trying to help the cause. So that's all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's gotten so serious out here that some schools are implementing where kids can't come to games without their parents. They have to be accompanied by an adult to go to football games. If you don't have an adult, you can't come into the game. So it's getting kind of serious. So what kind of response? I know you said you piloted the program in some of the schools that you're in. So what has been like the feedback and response that you have gotten so far?
Eyes wide open. Case in point, had a young man who was not doing so well in math,
Right.
and he's like, Coach Chatmon, I got it up to 72, and I went off. And the teacher's looking at me like, wait, this kid had a 54, and now he has a 72. I said, young fella, can't tell me Black Lives Matter, and you fell in math. She was like, what? I said, listen, ma'am, I'm going to put that same student on the basketball court tomorrow, and I'm going to want 110%. And that student's going to give me 110%. Are you telling me all he's good for is to give me 110% on the basketball court, but he can't give me 85 or 90 in the math class? So I didn't even ask for 110 in the math class. I asked for, and she looked and her eyes was like, oh my gosh, I've been selling him short. I said,
Wow.
yes, ma'am. I said, because he understands if he don't give me an 85 or above, when that college coach comes in and looks at his grades, he's going to say next. I said, and he also doesn't understand that the transfer portal does not care about him. It's going to say, I already have a athlete that has the grades. I'll just get him and I'll skip over the young man in high school. Is he deserving of playing basketball? Yes. But if I'm going to have him on the court asking for 110, I'm asking you to demand 85% in your classroom. And then we can build to the 90 and everything else. But with a C, he can't get anywhere. And so when she realized that, she was like, oh, okay, I got you. So by us implementing those things, teachers' eyes are wide open, because now we can freely say what it is that you've been thinking this whole time, that he couldn't. I mean, just being honest with you, we can now say what you've been thinking the whole time. And here's the beautiful thing. You either going to fight or flight. And what I mean by that is you're going to say, you know what? I have an issue. I have an issue of holding Black boys to a low standard and them reaching it. Or you're going to say, I want to continue to hold these Black boys to low standards so that they cannot be what it is that this man sees in them already.
Wow.
And so now, yeah, you got to either tell me you're for the cause or you're against it. But what I love about these two guys is they say, even if they're the most racist of the races, Robert, and they have one African-American kid in their school, if that kid is in AP classes, what's their percentage? I was like, 100%. He said, what school does it want to look like? They have 100% participation from African-American males. He says, do you understand the money that would flow into that school, the people that would descend on the school to see how they did it? He says, so even the races of the races need our help. He says, but while we're dealing with people who just don't understand, then you have to educate them in the way that you've been educating them. So,
wow.
Yeah, man.
Wow. That goes right in line with the quote from Les Brown, "Why people fail." Right? They say, people fail not because they aim too high and miss. They say that people fail because they aim too low and hit. they set lower expectations, and once they reach that expectation, then they feel they're comfortable. Whereas they could have gave that extra effort and went a step further. So that definitely highlights that particular quote where you have to challenge the students. Okay, yeah, you hit that benchmark, but what about aim a little bit higher, right? Because let's say if he had aimed for the 85, he may have settled at 80, and that's still above a 72. So
and that looks a whole lot better on a resume. A B looks a whole lot better.
Yep. Exactly. And and plus you have like a lot of school systems as well that are scaling back the grades. I think I saw somebody posted something online the other day where like an 85 is an A right now. And I'm like, that kind of, you're lowering the expectation of the student. Because my understanding, you got to get like a 91 and above to get an A. But now it's like an 85 or like maybe like a C is like a 60 or 55, something like that. I don't see the entire scale, but I know I've been hearing stuff here and there, and I think that's the wrong direction to be going in.
But it also depends on if that kid is taking like AP classes or something like that. Because sometimes the weight is different, so they can kind of I mean, that's a whole nother story. But like if you make a B in an AP class, it would be equivalent to making an A in a on-level class.
Okay.
So, but I mean, one thing that we've discovered is, like you said, the expectations of hitting low are in our neighborhood. Like my mama didn't graduate high school, so I graduated high school and then I stopped. Like, no. We go further.
Right.
And that's what we're pushing. And but again, though, it takes. Imagine this, man. If your dad told you every single day how special you were, right? You'd be like, man, I'm special. Imagine walking down the hall and 30 teachers told you in one day how special you are. Now, if your dad told you every single day, you got it. If 30 teachers told you every single day for 184 days how special you are, how powerful would you be, man?
Oh yeah.
But let me ask you this. What was the first thing you learned in school that you were as a Black person?
The first thing I learned?
Yeah. In history books.
That we were slaves.
Now, the slaves were created and born in America? No, they were brought from Africa. What was I in Africa? I was a king. I was a queen. I held resources. I was a mathematician. I was an astrologist. Astrologist. I was astronomy. I did. I was an embalmer. I was all of those things. Why didn't you tell me that first?
Wow.
Because you was afraid of what I would be if I knew who I was. That's the problem that's what Triple C comes in and we try to clean up some of that. Wow. We can't fix you, but we can help give you strategies to help.
Right. So for schools that are interested in bringing you all in and discussing a little bit further how you all can help them, how do they get in contact with you all?
Well, there's a couple of ways. We have a website, we're the triplec-effect.com. We're also on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're also on LinkedIn, and you also can reach out to us directly via email at the triplec-effect at gmail.com. And all of that information is posted on our website. We also are often promoting our work through avenues such as this one today. We do Instagram lives as well. We've also done a couple of other podcasts. We are looking to, over the next few weeks, we're going to be reaching out to prominent school districts, prominent superintendents, leaders of education throughout the country. And so in that way, we're marketing ourselves, but we're not hard to find. We're not hard to find at all. We're actually looking to, as much as possible, get rolling into schools. We love to do, whether it's a weekend workshop, whether it's a couple of days during the week, whatever the case may be, whatever your desire is, your need is around supporting African American males. We're here to support you. So again, we're easy to find. If these gentlemen want to add to that discussion, guys, please feel free.
Yeah. So Kern, I'll say this as well. We plan on just being at educational events. Almost as like a vendor, type. We have a event in Philadelphia. Say one in New Orleans. So we're trying to just be more visible, because once you give us the opportunity. And this happened the first time we presented in Alabama. Once given the opportunity, the teachers could do nothing except reflect and think how it could be different. I almost saw the thought bubbles, sir. I saw them. Like when I say, like, my first question was, think of that one black male that gave you the blues. That wasn't hard for them at all. That wasn't hard. You know what I'm saying? That was not hard. And so, meaning, like, when you have an engaging, activity like that, like, think about the person who gave you the hardest time. And so we gave our presentation. I came back at the end and said, now imagine if you'd have used those strategies you just learned today with that student, how do you think the relationship would have been? And then that's when I saw the light bulbs go off. And I said, that is what all we're trying to do. Because, like I said, people are leaving the education profession in droves. And typically that's because of a few kids, maybe a few parents, maybe, like, but it's just a small amount of group of students or personnel that's making a lot of our vast educational leaders, go to the greener pastures. And all we're saying is this: we're trying to give you your mojo back. We're trying to give you confidence, but above all, we're trying to enhance the relationship between the subgroup of all subgroups, sir. I can go to any inner city school and I can tell you 4 facts right off the bat. I bet you money the black males have the highest discipline rate. I bet you money the black males hold the highest amount of seats in the special ed department. I can tell you black males have the least amount of seats in the AP classes. And I can tell you that black males have the biggest, suspension or expulsion rate right now. Those are almost given facts. I have been a part of a lot of presentations or programs that come in, to try to help, but they don't go to the root cause analysis, meaning we're going to the teachers. We're going to the experts. So maybe now those programs will hit different. If a teacher has a different mindset, and if a teacher has a different mentality when talking to black males and when thinking about black males and having a mindset about black males, then maybe those programs, could definitely help. But unlike other programs, sir, we're going, I call it elephant hunting. We're going to the elephant in the room. And we're saying, what are you guys doing? So even to Mr. Chapman's point, even if a school says, no, we're good, we don't have discipline issues. All right, cool. Well, like, what about AP enrollment rates in classes? What about the pipeline for black students to, be a part of the honors classes? Like, what do you have for that? So regardless of what angle you come to, we are helping school districts from A to Z in terms of enhancing, helping, but sustaining those relationships. So therefore, that all stakeholders can then have the same expectations that we had for our black males in the school system.
Wow. That's great. So before we wrap up, do you all have any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
I'll start real quick. I just want to say that I think each of us will echo this sentiment that when we were growing up, we were kind of on our own. The successes that we found as educated black men and the pockets of supports that we had was not systemic. It was not intentional. We made it despite the circumstances. And one thing that I always wanted to do once I became quote unquote successful in my field of education is I wanted to give back, and I wanted people to understand that we stand on the shoulders of giants. And so that those who are coming after me, those black males who are matriculating through middle school and through high school, who may not have the sorts of supports that they need to necessarily be successful, and where some of them are falling by the wayside, I felt it was very, very important to come together with these guys and establish the Triple C effect, so there can be a pipeline to success as opposed to a pipeline to prison. Because when you talk about the pipeline, that's what you hear people talk about all the time, is a pipeline to prison, and how in fifth grade they look at the statistics of black males on standardized tests and they begin to plan how they're going to build prisons and that sort of thing. So, I would just say in closing that this is passionate work. This is a lifelong kind of thing that I always wanted to do because I saw the need for it to happen. And so please reach out to us. Please give us an opportunity to come support you, because the more you sit back and allow this to happen, then the more African-American males that are going to fall by the wayside. And it's not their fault. It is the systems that they are attempting to matriculate through. So let's begin to transform those systems.
Right. Okay.
Yes, sir. Mr. Curran, like what I would say is that in education, we've often been asking the question, like, what's your why, right?
Mm-hmm.
And throughout my educational career, I was always the teacher that had like the best classroom management, because when teaching math in Atlanta public schools, I had to run it almost like a professor in college, saying, "Hey, if you don't want it, I'm good with it, but just please don't disrupt me." And so like my
Mm-hmm.
way to even go about that, I had the students almost managing themselves, because like I just couldn't get into it with kids. They'll talk about my mama and I'll get upset, right? So it's one of those things that when I became an administrator, the same thing about teachers and showing them support. And so I was almost like deemed like the people's champ in terms of support. But I always felt like I was on an island by myself. So I finally realized my why in education, and my why in education is to level the playing field. And when I say level the playing field, giving stakeholders those strategies that changes their mindset to level the playing field, that they would recommend, African American male. That we just wouldn't be, hey, so what team do you play for? Like that question could almost be dissolved. Like when
Right.
like real quick story, like when me and my three of my co-workers from Atlanta Public Schools, we'd go out somewhere. We went to Applebee's one time. We walked past the table. Asked a little young lady, I said, "What do you think we do?" She's like, "Who do y'all play for?" I said, "We're all teachers." And she couldn't
Wow.
believe it. And so it's one of those things that we're just trying to be the model that we can for our young black boys, like where we are all young enough to still get in their ear. Like I had
Mm-hmm.
role models, but they were all in their retirement age when they gave me advice, and almost seemed like cliche. But like we're
Right.
here, like we're near your age. We do the same things. We think the same way. But we're just trying to give you strategy on how to navigate this thing called the world. But more importantly, we're trying to give stakeholders and teachers avenues and also strategies to help better the relationship, to help better their statistics, to help better their scores, and also to help better their careers. So now I found my passionate why. I want to help educators and stakeholders level the playing field for our young black boys.
So,
And mine is simple, man. I just want to see the next generation better than me. And I think it starts with education. A tree that stops growing has declared it is dying. So we as African American young men, when we stop seeking the education, we're doing the same thing, and then we're easily picked off. And I ask my classroom all the time, I say, if you're not playing chess, you're playing, and all of them say checkers. I was like, no, you're still playing chess. You're just a pawn. And you don't need to be a pawn. You need to be the back row, because we take care of the back row. A pawn is easily hated. First time a piece getting taken, more than likely it's a pawn. And far too long, many of our black boys have been pawns. And we need to be the back row. It's okay to run up and down the football field, but do you know the owner in the box? It's okay to hit a baseball, but do you know that they're building baseball stadiums? Same thing with basketball, and that's what I love about LeBron. He's not the greatest, MJ will always be, but
Gotta throw that in there, right?
yeah, most definitely. But LeBron, he's doing things outside of the sport that shows we can be more and we will be more.
Right.
And so that's what we try to teach these guys, man. Look, be better than us,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
so
Yep. Yeah, I gotta commend you and applaud you all for the work that you all are doing. Because again, it's very much needed. A lot of people that sit back and complain and complain and complain and not try to offer any type of solution. And you all have a solution in place that you're looking to implement across the country. So I definitely got to tip my hat off to you all and salute you for that. Right. And again, thank you for taking the time to come on here and talk about it and discuss it. And thank you all, the audience, for tuning in this week and checking out the Malik's First Job podcast. All administrators, educators, principals, all teachers with different titles that work in the school system, reach out to these brothers. Right? They have a resource that you can definitely use to help better your school system. And so we have the information scrolling across the bottom. Reach out to them. Also check out the show notes. We have the contact information there as well. All right. So again, thank you all for joining us today on the Malik's First Job podcast, and we see you all next week. Peace.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Generational wealth.